We are on Rise Up, everybody. Welcome, welcome. We've got a great show for y'all. Here we're on Rise Up, where we talk about responsibility, integrity, service, and empathy in action, and what I like to say, learn what's going on in the world and the difference that I can make. We've got almost everyone in the studio today. We've got Naria Gorder. Hello. Ricky DeSena. Hello. And some things we're going to talk about today is the UN SDG, what's it called again?
Action Zone.
Action Zone. This is really cool stuff. Just getting more hype about the UN SDGs, because everyone should know about these things. If we achieve these goals, we're going to just change the face of the earth. So Ricky's been intending that, so he's going to give us an update there. And then we're going to go into an interesting dialogue about climate change in preparation for Synergy coming up. Sound good? Yes, it does sound good. Let's go to Ricky. So what's the update on the zone?
Yeah, thank you, Mohan. I just wanted to share a little bit about this conference I'm attending because I found it really interesting. I found out about it recently, and I was attending. It's 3 days, so it started yesterday. It's continuing today, and there's one more day tomorrow. And yeah, what I found interesting, I'll talk a little bit about what I experienced yesterday. Was the big focus for this conference is obviously the SDGs, achieving these goals, how to achieve it, and how we're doing so far, but also a bit of a paradigm shift, because since last year, the UN has called for a decade of action until 2030. So what this means and what they're advocating for is basically for a slowdown of this kind of like rhetoric, or this kind of environment we're in, where it's all about talk. So we're just talking a lot, and we're talking about what we should do or what we shouldn't do. And unfortunately, although that's great, nothing's really happening. And so what I understood from yesterday was that we need to be doing more as an international community, as leaders in our respective fields. We need to think about what we can do as individuals in our areas to achieve these goals. So yesterday, as I mentioned, we were talking about, or the speakers were talking about poverty and inequalities. And something that they mentioned that I found really interesting was the fact that COVID had on these areas. So one thing they mentioned was in terms of poverty, what we've achieved so far, COVID-19 brought us back 5 years. So the effects of COVID-19 basically took out 5 years of work we put into the area of poverty and reduced inequalities. So I thought that was kind of like interesting to think about. We're already not doing enough, but on top of that, the effects of COVID-19, which is tragic, obviously, also brought us back a lot farther than we should be at this point. So I think it made me reflect on what we should be doing now, which is really not just talking, which talking is great, but really sitting down and planning out what it is that we can do, because everybody has their own talents, everybody has their own things that they can do. So we really need to figure out actively and substantially what is it that we can do for this earth.
Right. So it just started, right? I mean, there's still a few days left.
Yeah. Today they're talking about female empowerment, gender equality.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to day 3, talking about climate.
Oh yeah, for sure.
4th.
Yeah, if you could all be on there for that, I think that'd be great. That's super, super important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, COVID-19. Just it's like you can almost blame them for everything. The SDGs are going down. COVID-19. But it's true. I mean, when you have at the same time, it's also an opportunity, and I think that's what Secretary General Antonio Gutierrez, he mentions that how it's also an opportunity for us to come together as a human family, and sometimes that those challenges forces us to work together. I mean, if you really think about it, if all of the parliamentarians and congressional reps around the world work together, then we probably could have ended the spread of COVID-19 like in 2 weeks, right? In theory, if everyone really shut down for 2 weeks, in theory, this whole thing could be gone, right? If we could really communicate in such a way. And it sounds kind of crazy if that's possible, but I think it's possible someday where humanity we can work together to end pandemics that are destructive to all of humanity. So just thoughts. But it's unfortunate that we kind of regressed in our when it comes to poverty. And I mean I'm quite privileged, obviously. You can see how I live in a house. That's nice. So but you're right, there's a lot we can give, and give and forget. It's a great practice. But Narya, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm trying to tune into it as well when I can spare time. But it's definitely great to have all the different panels of speakers that they have for the SDG in action. And I hope a lot of young people were able to register and just be able to tune in and listen and learn, because I'm definitely learning a lot, especially today when it's talking about equality and empowerment for women. So, yeah, I mean, definitely interested in tuning in for tomorrow as well with the climate action and hearing the speakers about that and learning more in detail.
Anything more about that, about women and gender equality, and anything stand out to either of you?
Yeah, I was listening in a little bit this morning before the podcast, and yeah, I think what I'm hearing a lot is I think what we've been hearing for a while, which is we need to give women the tools and the space to speak. I think women have inherent value, just being in these leadership positions and providing that different perspective. That I think having a room full of men, you're missing something there, right? I mean, Nara, you could probably speak to this, right? But yeah, I think we a lot of times we undervalue that inherent value in women, and so I think from what I saw, that's something that's really important to acknowledge, just that value that women provide, just in having that different perspective. And also, I think they do think about problems a little bit differently than men. We tend to be a bit more, I don't know, aggressive. I don't know what's the word. Whereas, they, I think so. Yeah, generally. Whereas from what I've seen, women are, think more about the bigger picture and the repercussions of what our actions will have in the future.
Great. That's a great analysis.
Thank you. I mean, I'm also just spitting back what I heard. So.
Oh, okay. Nari, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess one part that stuck out that I was able to tune in for was one lady sharing about domestic violence and domestic abuse on just bringing awareness of like kind of blaming the victim mentality, that oftentimes that there's a victim, but we often like think it might be like something they did or didn't do that caused the whole situation. And that's something that we need to really avoid. So for those who have like experienced domestic violence abuse, like they end up in this mentality of thinking like, oh, it's my fault. Like I'm the one to blame for this whole situation, when honestly, it's the person who's inflicting abuse on them that really needs to be held accountable. So it's like kind of bringing awareness to that and how to really deal with that. I thought that was really good to bring up. So that stuck out with me. And also Ricky's point about like more women leaders at the seat, kind of like having a word to say about like making these key decisions globally. I remember someone once telling me, like, if since women, like, they have children, and like when there's a war, they don't want wars to happen because then their children would have to go to war, right? They would be soldiers. So if there are women leaders, like leading nations and countries, then there'll probably be less wars. I don't know if that will be true, but it would be an interesting thing to see.
It would definitely be some sort of trend, if anything. Of course, you have women who are very ambitious, and just like men, there are men who are very kind and sensitive and all that too. So, I always come back to this article that I read a while back about the qualities of the good qualities of a CEO and the association of women versus men, and like which between the two are typically better in these 5 qualities. And 4 out of 5 women were better. Like communication, collaboration, these sort of things. The only one thing that men were better at, and much better at actually, is risk taking. Which see, like this is something that's less, there's less dispute about these kind of points. Of course, not every man or every woman is a certain way, but there is certainly a trend, and again, just by design, by the way our body, our brain kind of works. But without even going into all that, you can kind of see that trend. And of course, I would love to have the opinion of the masculine world and the feminine world. I don't even care what gender you are. I care more about, well, are you representing these the kind of harder and softer approach to decision making. So, but in a world where we need more peace, I think it does lean more in one direction. So, and I think it is lacking. So I think it makes sense for the UN to be advocating for it. So I can appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And let's face it, sometimes like when things are too calm, you got to shake things up too sometimes. So maybe, we need to bring in more of a masculine sort of, and again, I'm not here to define all these terms here. I think we're just trends.
Yeah, I think it's honestly a balance of everything. We need to be able to recognize the strengths and different attributes of each person and gender, and be able to be open to considering them all. So that's why it's a certain ways of viewing things may be important in a certain situation, and a different way of viewing things might be important in another situation. So it's important to have that balance, a well-rounded view of everything, and knowing where is the best fit and where does this make sense. Ultimately, our goal is to be able to create peace and benefit people, like bring prosperity and happiness to people. So if we can see that as the end goal, then I think it would be clear in knowing what kinds of decisions or viewpoints might be needed in some situations.
Yeah, well put. I mean, what happens is when you have an extreme of either side, then what happens is the extreme opposite starts to bubble up. And like you said, to kind of balance out what's out there. So, some of us who are a little more in the middle, we look at this and we're just like, wow, y'all are crazy. But like you said, it's literally just trying to create balance in the world, because, I think we have maybe been leaning one way or another. So it's humanity, society is interesting. It's good for us to, like you said, be aware and be a peacemaker. All right. Thanks, Ricky.
Yeah.
Thanks for this great discussion. And now I'd like to, again, bring our attention to an exciting event, October 16th, Synergy. The submission deadline is October 9th. And the theme is climate change. This is one of my most favorite topics because everyone has a different perspective, and it's a great exercise of listening and learning and understanding, and knowing that your perspective is an opinion. And so it's kind of humbling when you discuss it. You know, I was just the other day, we were promoting synergy, and this one particular person I was talking to, he doesn't, just flat out doesn't believe in man-made climate change. And so at that point I was kind of like, okay, let me listen. And so I was just listening and realizing, yeah, okay, I think he may not agree with that his opinion is not in favor of, like, you know, man-made climate change or even our effort to reduce, you know, carbon emissions, but he was still supportive of youth, and he believed that it's good for us to be, you know, investing ourselves in a cause for humanity, and so he was supportive. So I was like, you know, so I think it's important for us to you know, be agreeable somehow, you know, make bridges. And it's only through that process do we kind of, you know, raise our awareness, raise our understanding. What I don't like is when people bicker or complain about the other side, because it really doesn't do anything. And it just it shows your ignorance of the complexity of the issue. So I don't recommend complaining about other people. At the same time, I know that if you want your voice to be heard, sometimes you do want to poke at people and kind of agitate a little bit. I understand that too. So that's why I also don't judge for agitators either. So all I know is, at least with YSP, we take more of a peaceful approach. And as you know, one of our main core values is what we call hyojung, which is like this heart of respect and honor for those who came before us, but working together, kind of in collaborating to make a better product. So, but yes, I'm curious of what you guys' experience is with climate change, and, you know, what you hear out there. Is it mostly, yes, you know, I'm all for it, I'm all for helping reduce it? And I mean, we've like on this channel, we've talked a lot about, you know, small islands that are going underwater, and you know, Alaska heating up in flares. It's like, in one sense, it seems indisputable that there is climate change, and I think many would say there is. But how we reduce it, what we can do about it, I think that's really the big debate. So I'm just curious to what your general thoughts are, experience.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking a little bit earlier before the podcast, and I believe I'm a fervent believer in that, you know, as good as activists are and like what they do and creating buzz around the topic, which is important, I believe like it's more important to, I don't know, actually offer up solution when we're trying to shake things up, you know? Like I don't believe in, I don't know, shaking things up for the sake of shaking things up. Like I believe in shaking things up and then inputting a solution, right? Because if we just like create chaos and create like, I don't know, this kind of environment where like we're just creating discourse, I don't think it brings us that much closer to our goal. And I'm all about, you know, goals and reaching our goals and finding a path toward a solution. So, I mean, that's kind of my perspective on it. I believe, you know, climate change is real. I believe it's man-made. And I believe our responsibility as young people is to bring a solution to the table.
I'm with you there. But yes, was it shaking things up for the sake of shaking things up for the sake of shaking things up?
Yeah.
It sounds like fun.
It does sound like fun.
No, what's your experience, or what's your take or thoughts on
Well,
this?
I agree with Ricky. It reminds me of a quote by President Roosevelt about complaining. Like, if you complain about something without posing a solution, you're just whining. So I think that's very good. And by, I guess, saying that shows that like we need to really kind of step up. Like, instead of just see a problem and tell somebody else to deal with it and take care of it, we're not taking responsibility ourselves when we are a key factor also in this entire globe. We're someone living on this planet. So with climate action, climate change, I guess my viewpoint personally is that I don't know if it's like I wouldn't say it's completely human people who are contributing to climate change, or if it's just the planet and its cycle. It could be a combination of both even. But one thing for sure is that there is definitely climate change. There are countries that are heavily affected in a negative way because of different climate extremes. So that is a fact, and people need to be taken care of, and we need to start doing something to help address this. So there's climate mitigation. They're saying mitigating, not like completely like reversing exactly, because I don't think we know if we can actually reverse what's happening, especially if it is a natural thing. But if it is a man-made thing, like whether it is, I guess, we still need to start changing how we're operating as human beings on this planet. Reduce our consumption of single-use plastics and wasteful habits, and also with the carbon emissions and stuff, it's definitely making an impact on our planet and the environment. So that's something that's a fact, and we definitely need to step up and change that.
Yeah, I love what you mentioned about responsibility, which is our first core value, and I do wish that more people took responsibility. I'm not just talking about youth either. I'm talking about all people. Like anyone who complains and doesn't offer any kind of solution or suggestion, recommendation, it's just lazy, if you ask me. Like, do your research, talk to people, get out there, look at these rivers for yourself. See how dirty, polluted they are. Look at these factories. Look at how they're chopping trees down and destroying forests. And it's like, just look for yourself and talk to people. Like you said, do something. Ricky, I think that's your point. We do a lot of talking. It's convenient, and I'll be honest. Here I am sitting here talking. It's like I am organizing another river cleanup in Kansas City with one of our interns right now, so that should be fun. But I think it's really important for each of us to do our part and not be a whiner. I think that's the worst thing you can do is whine, because because it also discourages the people who want to do good. Because often I feel like it's not so, and you've heard this quote before, but it's not so much about the evil people, the bad people doing things. It's more about the good people not doing anything. I think that's more of the issue, because we're not aware, and so we hope that through this show or through Synergy, we can just raise awareness of issues that are affecting our world. And what was just a few days ago, we had an interesting guest at the UN, right? BTS was there. They were kind of it was funny because I was looking at the numbers of viewers. There was like over 6 million, and I was reading the chat. They're like, "Where's BTS? Where's BTS?" I'm like, "Come on, guys! Like, it's not just about BTS here." But hey, you gotta speak the language. You gotta kind of go where people are at, because it seems like a lot of people are in kind of confused. There's a lot of uncertainty about the future. And even my kids, they're age 6 and 4, they're growing up in a world with everyone's wearing masks, and I heard that even with if you're wearing masks all the time in school, you can't really communicate well, and you're actually losing a bit of some social ability. So it's like it's an interesting world we're in. So I think it's better that we work together and collaborate than be even more divisive. It's like I don't think we can afford any more of that nonsense. So not that I'm complaining about the nonsense. Is hey, you want to spew nonsense? That's fine. But anyway, one more time, Synergy. It's coming up. So just a few tips. I know it might seem kind of overwhelming to kind of make a whole presentation and I'll do all this research. Just keep in mind, you're not being judged by your knowledge of climate change, number one. And number two is that the idea that you come up with, you're not necessarily accountable to doing that project. The reason being, we value your ideas. Now, of course, if you can do this project, you get more points because feasibility is a factor. But look at different ideas. Like even your project could even be like a feasibility study, or it could be an awareness campaign, or it could be like an awareness campaign with a small project that you can do locally, to kind of model the things that you're talking about. It could be planting trees. Again, it's like, I think sometimes we overthink it, but we want your submissions. I think right now we don't have very many, if maybe we have any at all. So here's your chance, honestly, to present an idea, and you never know the kind of experience you'll have in the network you can create as a result of that. So definitely recommend it. And again, this is something you can do right now. Contributing your ideas to make a better world, that is super valuable, even more than your money and time, frankly. So just do it. Click the button. Go to yspusa.org. And if I want to pull it up, Ricky, can you pull up the website real quick?
Yeah, 1 second.
It's super easy. We've also upgraded the web page on Synergy. So you just go to the yspusa.org, click on Synergy in the top bar, and there's a big button there that says pre-register. And so what that's going to do is we're going to walk you through the steps of how to submit your presentation. There's also some buttons under there that talks about the rules and the rules, and then example projects and past synergies, so you can get a better idea of what yours might look like. So super easy. You can do that right now, in fact. So just do it. All right. Anything else?
Well, we did celebrate International Day of Peace on the 21st. So happy International Day of Peace, although a little belated.
Yeah, but I think the UN observed it on Friday last week, I believe. At least I saw there was a live stream, or there's a video up, and they really care about the youth. The UN, they really do want to hear from us. And so I appreciate that International Day of Peace. And there was one boy, he was like a 10-year-old boy. He asked a question to Secretary General Antonio Gutierrez, and he was from Florida, and he's asked, when are people gonna act less like individuals and more like a family? I'm like, there's no problem with being an individual, but I do agree with the family. And he gave a sweet response and saying how, I think that's ultimately what we want, and we're working towards that. And so I look forward to that day. And it may not be one day in time, but certainly we can make it a little bit better each day, starting with you guys joining us on Rise Up. So thank you. Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Let's close it out. I'm so happy you could join us today, everyone. See you next week. Take care.
All right. Bye.
All right.